The Dordles Find Fuel by C.G. Salamander at Storyweaver. The Dordles were lost and needed lots and lots of fuel to get home. Their ship needed energy to lift off, and the Dordles needed fuel to generate energy. So they made a list of all the fuels they could think of and left in search of them. Dordle B, the leader of the group, burrowed into the ground in search of coal. But he was surprised to find almost all of the coal was used up, so he left with a piece of coal the size of his hand. Dordle D, the smartest of the three, trekked to the densest forest. But she was shocked to see just one tree. Dordle D had to settle for a few dry branches. Dordle E, the tiniest Dordle, sailed to the oil fields that never dried up. Dordle E was lucky to leave with a few drops of oil. The Dordles gathered their fuel and put it into their ship to burn and generate energy. The engines roared, the lights came alive, the ship lifted off, but sadly they didn't get very far. Disappointed, the Dordles did what Dordles do best. They ate till their tummies reached their chest. What is fuel? A fuel is a substance that releases useful energy when it undergoes a chemical reaction. Materials such as coal, wood, oil and gas provide us with heat, light and energy when they are burned. Energy can be used to cook our food, keep us warm and make our engines run. Fuels come in different forms. They can be solids, like wood and coal, liquids, like petrol and kerosene, or gases, like liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, and biogas. We use fuel to drive cars, generate electricity for homes, and power factories. The Dordles Save Fuel, Book 2. The Dordles were lost and needed to get home. They had used up all the coal, wood, and oil they had collected. Now they needed to find and use fuel smartly. They learned that coal came from animal bones and plants kept under pressure for millions of years. But there was very little coal left on Earth, so they came up with a plan. Dordle B, the oldest Dordle, left to get firewood. He only used fallen branches and planted more trees when he was done. Dordle D, the brightest Dordle, turned off all the lights on the ship to save energy. While Dordle E, the youngest Dordle, buried a bone he found with the hope of it turning into coal. The Dordles looked for other ways to save fuel. They replaced things that were broken and things that used too much energy. They cycled and walked when they searched for fuel. They even found bio-waste and turned it into biofuel. The Dordles had collected more fuel than before. They were sure that they would be able to leave the planet this time. They started their engines, put on their seatbelts, and their ship zoomed into the sky. This time, the Dordles got far, but not far enough. Tired and hungry, the Dordles knew what to do next. They ate till their tummies touched their necks. What are fossil fuels? Fossil fuels are fuels that were formed from the buried remains of plants and animals that lived millions of years ago. They are found naturally under the earth and are the most used fuels in the world. Fuels such as coal, crude oil and natural gas are all considered fossil fuels because they originally came from fossils. Fossil fuels are limited in quantity because it takes millions of years to make them. They are also bad for the environment. Burning fossil fuels produces too much carbon dioxide. This leads to global warming and the melting of the ice caps, causing the oceans to rise and climate change to speed up. Luckily, just like the Dordles, the world is looking to reduce its dependence on fossil fuels and switch to fuels that are clean and safe for the environment. The Dordles Go Home, Book 3. The Dordles were lost and needed fuel to get home. They had tried coal, wood and oil as fuel, but they were of little help. The Dordles needed to find a better fuel to take them home. Fuel like coal took millions of years to form. There was very little coal left on Earth, so the Dordles went looking for fuel that was there in plenty and that would never run out. Dordle B set sail for the seas looking for energy sources. Along the way, he found dams, rivers, tides, and waterfalls. Dordle D took to the skies and realised that she could harness the energy of the wind and use it to power their ship. Dordle E packed his bags and said goodbye to the others. He would travel to the sun and steal its fire. Sadly, he didn't make it all the way to the sun, but he did find a way to use its energy. The Dordles found all sorts of new sources of energy, like geothermal energy, using the heat from under the earth, and nuclear energy, which they got by splitting very small particles called atoms. They built devices that helped them better harness energy. After months of trying, the Dordles finally had the energy they needed. They turned on their engines, fastened their seatbelts, lifted off, and zoomed away from Earth. What is renewable fuel? Renewable energy is collected from renewable sources in nature. Sunlight, wind, rain, waves, and geothermal energy, heat from the ground, are always around us, regardless of how much we use them. Biofuel is made from agricultural, industrial, and domestic waste. We can harness energy from these sources and use it to power our houses, vehicles, and factories. Energy from these sources is less polluting. What is nuclear fuel? Nuclear fuels are used in power plants to generate heat and electricity. Heat is created when the nuclear fuel undergoes nuclear fission. This is where an atom with a large nucleus is split into two or more atoms with smaller nuclei. The nuclear fission reaction produces a lot of heat, which is then used to generate electricity. Nuclear energy is not renewable, since the nuclear fuel has to be mined. The end. Thank you for reading with Storyberries.com. Free stories for kids.